His Excellency John Mahama, honorable ministers, ambassadors, dignitaries, ladies, gentlemen, and friends, thank you so much for being here. I'll give you a quick background on Mara and my family just to put a bit of context on this, but my family had left India in 1890 from Gujarat to go to Uganda. My mother's family had similarly left Gujarat in 1920 to go to Tanzania. So I'm a fourth generation African. But in 93 they were missing home, they were missing Africa. So we sold our home and business in England and we moved to Rwanda. 9 months later, unfortunately, the genocide broke out. And my sister, who's here, Ahoti Chug, and myself and my parents were refugees for 35 of the 100 days during the genocide. How many of you have seen the movie Hotel Rwanda? So we were we were at home for 9-10 days and then at Hotel Rwanda for 9-10 days and then taken to Bujumbura. But cutting a long story short, we luckily came out alive, but unfortunately everything we built as a family from 72 to 93, we lost again in 94. And so we moved back to Uganda as a full circle, and that's when I felt like I wanted to and needed to do something about it to support the family. So I quit school when I was 15, and I took a $5,000 loan to set up Mara. So I am as uneducated as they come. But very quickly realized that I was buying goods from Dubai, selling them in Uganda, did that for 4 months every weekend, and realized that so many people from the rest of the continent are doing the same thing. So as a result, relocated to Dubai and started supplying IT equipment across Africa. Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, Tanzania, DRC, Ethiopia, Zambia, Mozambique, Malawi, South Africa, and this is in 96, 97. And very quickly realized that all of our countries are so unique in their own respects. We've all got our own histories and cultures and politics and parliaments. How do you truly operate in a local manner, but with global standards? And that's what became the Mara model. So to fast track to today, Mara is now a true African group. We're headquartered in Dubai. We have physical presence in 25 African countries with about 11,000 employees. And the core focus for the group today is banking, real estate, infrastructure, and technology. And in technology, we have a very exciting focus of social media, e-commerce, last mile logistics, and a devices business. So that's how we kind of came about. And when you look at the continent, the true transformation that Africa has been through, 6 of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world, amazing, amazing governance that is taking place on the continent, despite sometimes the perception that our continent has. Visionary leaders like His Excellency President Mahama, who's here today, have truly transformed our continent from that of a struggling continent, or the perception of, to really a thriving continent, which has become, 6 of the 10 fastest growing economies of the world, 52 cities with over 1 million people in them. We've got more mobile phones than North America and Western Europe put together. In 5 years, we're going to have 700 million smartphones on the continent. The true rapid transformation that is taking place in Africa is truly significant, and we've seen this firsthand. The amazing environments that visionary leaders like His Excellency have created on the continent, the true inspiration that they've created for other countries who aren't as advanced as countries like Ghana, has made that massive difference, and that's that transformation that is taking place. This is the reason we set up the Mara Foundation 7 years ago, with the focus of how do we truly enable, empower, and inspire young entrepreneurs and women entrepreneurs globally. There was no better person to invite here today, and that's why I'm extremely humbled and pleased that His Excellency joined us today. A true visionary, a true passionate leader who doesn't only represent Ghana, but who represents Africa and represents the new generation of public sector leaders that we need if we're going to end extreme poverty during our generation. I have the honor of welcoming His Excellency President John Mahama.
Thank you very much, Ashish. And let me say how happy I am to be here today. We've convened almost 45 African presidents to attend the India-Africa Summit. It allows us to have bilateral exchanges with the government of India to discuss the projects that we've been working on. But then aside from that, it also allows us from tomorrow at the summit to discuss issues that are of common concern to us: security, democracy, global governance, and all the other issues that leaders discuss when they come together. But I'm happy my friend Ashish gave me the opportunity to be here. I met him was at the US-Africa Summit, where both of us shared a platform at a forum that was on sustainable energy that was sponsored by General Electric. And we got the opportunity to get to know each other better. He explained what he was doing about mentorship. And it just fell in line with what we were trying to do in Ghana too. And so I said, so are you coming to Ghana to launch this thing as quickly as possible? And of course he did. We were together at the launch of Mara Mentorship Program in Ghana. But let me say the peculiar thing about Ghana. Ghana gained independence in 1957. And our first president, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, had been a strong part of the Pan-African movement. And so when he gained independence, of course, he launched himself immediately into the liberation struggle and said that the independence of Ghana was meaningless unless it was linked up with the total liberation of the African continent. So Ghana became the headquarters of continental liberation. And name any African liberation leader who didn't carry a Ghanaian passport or, at one time or the other seek asylum or refuge in Ghana. But one of the things about Nkrumah was he was a socialist. And so we started with the socialist model of development. And that was a heavily state-dominated model. In every aspect of economy of our lives, the state dominated. And so if it was transport from point A to point B, we had the State Transport Corporation that did inter-city transport. If it was within the city, we had the Omnibus Services Corporation. If it was shoes to wear, we had the Gihok Shoe Factory. If it was building materials, we had Gihok. Gihok is Ghana Industrial Holding Corporation. It was one huge state monopoly, that did everything. If you wanted to drink alcohol, we had the Gihok distilleries that brewed, alcohol for us to drink. And so the only space that was left for entrepreneurship of the private sector was in commerce. And so naturally, you find that Ghanaians became very trade-oriented and commercial because the state dominated everything else. And so it was a huge monopoly, and you could not compete with the state. If they made losses, the losses were written off by the government, and the state monopolies continued to survive. And so in Ghana, we've had to relearn entrepreneurship. We've had to relearn, what role the private sector should play. And so even though from about the mid-80s into the 90s, we have said that the private sector is the engine of growth. I mean, getting our people to understand what role they should play in terms of, that engine of growth has been something that is difficult. But like Ashish said, Africa is rising. That's true. Things have changed. A lot of things are going forward. 6 fastest growing economies. My own country's economy grew so fast. I mean, in 2011, we grew at 15%, and over the last decade or so, it's been an average growth of between 6 and 7% per annum. This year was experiencing a bit of slow growth, a bit above 4%, but next year it is projected by the IMF to rise to above 6%, and then in 2017 to go above 9%. And so, yes, growth is being generated, but often we talk about jobless growth. It's not that growth is not churning out jobs, but even if it's churning out jobs, do you have the skill set to match those jobs? And that's one of the major questions that we're asking ourselves. Are people entrepreneurial-minded to take advantage of some of the opportunities that are being thrown up as a result of the development and growth of the economy? Those are questions that we have started to ask ourselves. We have a lot of young people coming out of school and having been a country colonized by Britain like India was. You have to break out of the grammar school mode of education where you're just taught to speak very good English, write well and everything, but don't really have a practical mindset. The love is for the string of degrees that follow your name, rather than what you practically can do, And so that's the kind of education system. We've reformed it to give it a more practical bent. We've created a technical and vocational, branch of our education. But people would only go that way if they are not able to continue into tertiary education and get a degree. And so reorienting that whole educational system and also equipping people with the skills to go into the world of work is one of the things that we had been battling with. So aside from Ashish introducing the mentorship program, on our own national side, we have introduced 2 programs that seek to empower our young people, and especially women, with the skills to be able to take advantage of the opportunities that are coming up. And so we have the Youth Enterprise Fund, which provides young people with not only capital. A lot of time, if you speak to business people in Ghana and you say, what is it that will make your business grow? The first thing they talk about is capital. But capital is indeed not the first, it's the third or fourth. The first is the skill to be able to run a business. And so if you put as much capital into a business, but the person running the business does not have the entrepreneurial skill to run it, then that business is going to run into the ground. And we've seen so many programs that government has brought up to provide capital to small and medium enterprises. And just give it a couple of years, the capital is nowhere to be found and the businesses have run aground. And so with the Youth Entrepreneurial Agency, what we did was to put capital at the end. You put in an application, you just give a rough idea of what you think you want to do. And then you have people who sit with you and develop that idea, see what skills you have and what skills you don't have for being able to put that idea into practice. And then they work with you, mentor you all the way, come up with a feasibility study, and you present the feasibility study. There's a panel of judges who look at it, and then eventually they choose a certain number out of what they have. We had about 4,000 applications, and about 160 were approved, if I remember. And then at the end of all that comes the capital and the instruments and the tools to be able to set up the business. And then once you're set up, we don't just leave you. You have a mentor from the private sector who makes sure you're keeping your cash book properly, you're keeping good books of accounts, comes to visit you, once every month and make sure that, you're following the idea until you're able to stand on your own feet. And we just kicked off the first batch of them, and I'm wishing them well. I told them in the course of my tour around the country, I'll drop in, from time to time and see how any of them are doing. We also have the Skills Development Fund, and that is a more basic project. It has the same model as the Youth Entrepreneur Project, but it goes to the grassroots, and so it assists people in agribusiness, in agriculture, and other such sectors to be able to gain more knowledge and know-how as to how to expand their business. There was one particular advert I was watching, very nice advert of this lady and her husband, and it's a documentary of the Skills Development Fund, and she was talking about how they worked with the Skills Development Fund to go into rearing pigs, into a piggery. And they built the pigsty themselves, she and her husband, they put it up. And the Skills Development Fund brought the experts and brought them the piglets, improved, piglets to rear. And then they taught them how to rear, they taught them how to mix the feed and all that. And this was several months later. The woman was interviewed again, and she was asked, how has her experience with the Skills Development Fund been? And she said, it was wonderful. They couldn't pay their children's school fees, and things were so difficult. But then with the assistance of the Skills Development Fund, they had, been able to set up this pigsty, and it really had improved their incomes. And then she said, it has even made the marriage better, And that was significant for her. That was what was important, that she and her husband had become closer because the issues of money, were not as bad as they used to be before. But these are some of the little things that we're doing. In Ghana particularly, we have an oil and gas sector that has begun. In 2011, we started producing oil, and we've discovered a lot of reserves of gas and all that. Now, one of the important things we had to do in order that we didn't follow the negative experience that other countries had, like our neighbor Nigeria. Nigeria had nobody to learn from. Everything they've learned, they learned themselves. We are lucky we've been able to learn from Norway, from Nigeria, and all that. And so we passed a local content bill that allows indigenous Ghanaians to be able to participate in the oil and gas industry. But one of the difficulties that has existed is finding skilled people to work in that industry. And so empowering young people and teaching them how to compete and bid for jobs in the oil and gas sector has been another area that we've had to look at and deal with. And so we set up what we call an enterprise development center, where young people who wanted to provide services in the oil and gas sector could go for a crash training course. It's a 3-month course, and they are taught and equipped with the skills that allow them to provide services in the oil and gas sector. There's so many other things that we're doing in terms of empowering entrepreneurship and working together with the Mara Foundation in many of these areas. We're looking to bring Ashish back to do another major launch of the foundation and expand the scope of what it's doing in Ghana. And so I'm happy that Anu here has the Indian branch, and I think that collaborating between the two, because really India inspires Africa. I mean, the growth of India as a major economic power inspires Africa that, look, we can also create a better life for our people. Ashish was talking about the Millennium Development Goals, and that is one of the major instruments that we've used to really reduce poverty in Africa. My own country, Ghana, achieved, the reduction of extreme poverty by half long before the 2015 target date. And so we're one of the countries that was honored for that. We also achieved the target of reducing hunger and malnutrition before the target date, and we were honored for that. Just at the last United Nations General Assembly, as you saw on the video, we adopted the Sustainable Development Goals. While we did not completely finish some of the goals from the MDGs, I say that the SDGs, because of the way they synchronize with the Millennium Development Goals, allow us to complete the MDGs while striving to achieve the SDGs. And so I think it's a very good target, 15 years. It's very ambitious. I said this is one of the most ambitious projects the UN has ever embarked on. But all of us are going to get on board, and we're going to work and make sure that 15 years from now, we create a much better world than we have it today. Thank you very much.